Bonjour and welcome to presentation of the verb être, to be. Today we are going to talk about the pronunciation, conjugation, and the uses that we can use être for. Let's start off with pronunciation as well as conjugation. So we would pronounce être, to be, but we will say je suis. Remember, I will make a oui sound, and we do not pronounce the final consonants of words unless there is an E following them, or they end in letters like C, R, F, and L. To help remember how to spell je suis, remember that it means I am, and we will have an I in it. Tu es, es, makes an A sound at the end of a word, tu es. If you remember how to spell es, you are going to be on the path to remembering a lot of information, because as you will see later, EI verbs have an ES ending. So again, if you can remember the two form, you're on your way to remembering how to conjugate many verbs. Il, elle, or on est, he, she, or one is. Notice how il est and tu es sound exactly the same, because again, we do not pronounce the final consonant of that word. Nous sommes. Again, we do not pronounce the final S, and because there are two M's here, we will pronounce them, and we will not make the O nasalized. So again, it's nous sommes. When we're learning later on how to conjugate verbs that end in ER and other verbs, if we can remember that there's always an S, just like with nous sommes, we will be doing good. Vous êtes. Notice we do not pronounce this ES, vous êtes, because we do not have to pronounce the final vowel sound, because this is at least one syllable word. To remember how to spell it, if you can remember être, the first two letters of être, and the final two letters of tu, you have spelled vous êtes. Il, elle, sont. Notice, il and elle, they, sound the exact same as il and elle, he, she. But also notice how we cannot pronounce the final T, and the N does not have an E following it. So the N is not pronounced, and O is nasalized. So elles sont, or ils sont. Now that you know how to conjugate, match the verb itself to the correct subject, we will now talk about the uses. Whenever we conjugate a verb, we need the subject first, then the verb, and perhaps an object. And one of the most important uses of the verb être is that we can describe something. So we will have a subject, and then to be, and then an adjective. Here are several examples. Je suis gentil, tu es intelligent, elle me rend adorable. But notice these adjectives have to also agree with the subject, because they are describing the subject. This is very common for all French adjectives. So, je suis gentil. The gentil must agree with je, which is, in this case, feminine, and the verb has to be conjugated according to the subject of the sentence, je. We know that tu es intelligent, tu is a male, because there's no E to make it feminine. Adorable can be either or. It can be male or female, so we wouldn't know. Same as capable. We do know that the étudiant is plural, but we cannot tell if they are male or female or mixed. Well, we do know that there is at least one male in the group, because if there was all females, we would have an ES at the end of étudiant. Same thing with américain. Malade, ils sont malades tells us that they're all males because of ils. And elles sont fatiguées, the elles tells us they're all females, but as well as that adjective. An extra E and an S means feminine, plural. Let's talk about some of the uses. I've seen être used incorrectly in many ways. In English, for example, we can say, how are you? And it means, hey, how are you doing? Well, in French, if you literally translate that, it would be comment es-tu? Or how is he? Comment est-il? But it doesn't mean the same thing. It means, what are you like? So if you would ask comment est-il or comment es-tu, we're looking for things that would describe what they're like. Big, small, tall, skinny, outgoing, timid, sportive, those kinds of things. If you would like to ask how are you doing or how are you going, you actually have to use the verb aller, which means to go. And you can conjugate it for whatever subject you need. Ça va? It's going. So again, if you want to use comment est and then pronoun, it means what is this person like? Another way I have heard it used incorrectly is I am and then an age. If I want to say I am using the verb être, je suis 37, it means I am that number itself. If I want to say that I am so many years old, I have to use the verb avoir, which is a different verb, and say j'ai 37 ans. So again, we use the verb avoir with a number and un to state how old someone is. Also, if we would like to say I am cold or I am hot, in English we would use the verb être, for to be. But I can't even type that out because in French it does not mean something that would even be nearly appropriate to talk about in French class. In order to state whether you are hot or cold, you have to say I have heat or I have cold, just like in Spanish. J'ai chaud, j'ai froid. If we are saying it's hot outside, then we have to use a different verb instead of avoir to have. We have to use faire to do or make, meaning it's making cold outside. Il fait chaud or il fait froid. Also, to say I am right or you are wrong, we can't say je suis correct because then I am correctness itself. You can say c'est correct, well that is correct, but if you want to say somebody's right or wrong, you have to use the verb avoir and raison or tort, right or wrong. So j'ai raison et tu as tort. I'm right and you're wrong. Similarly, to say I am hungry or I am thirsty, the French have to use the verb avoir to have hunger or to have thirst. J'ai faim, j'ai soif. You can say I am afraid, je suis effrayé, but more often you're going to use the verb avoir and peur for I have fear. You could say j'ai peur des chats. I'm afraid of cats. J'ai peur. Tu n'as pas peur? You're not afraid? And finally, I'm tired. Oftentimes, instead of hearing just je suis fatigué, I'm tired, you will hear j'ai sommeil. I have sleepiness or rest. Sommeil is a very hard word to translate perfectly, but it basically means tired, sleepy, or rest. Now, there are a lot of idiomatic expressions that are correct to use with the verb être. For example, comment est and then someone. What is it like? Comment est ta petite amie? Comment est ton nouveau petit ami? So how is this new boyfriend or girlfriend of yours? Je ne suis pour rien. I had nothing to do with it. I'm no party with it at all. Où en êtes-vous? Where are you or how far along are you? Il est ainsi, that's just the way it is. Être à quelqu'un de. So to be to someone of, and then an action. So, c'est à mon mari de sortir la poubelle. It's to my husband to have to take out the garbage. And notice there's not to have to, but that's his job. This expression is to be to someone, to do something, or de faire quelque chose. That says, well, it's his job. C'est à moi de faire tout ce qui reste. Too bad we don't have a sad face here. Because it's to me to do everything that's left. Possession is really easy with the verb être. All we need is être and à. Ce livre, c'est à Pierre. Notice à Pierre means just Pierre's. It's their version of apostrophe S. À moi, mine. À lui, his. And those lovely birds in Finding Nemo say à moi, à moi, à moi. Ça a été. Notice if you want to say, well, how's it going right now? You would say ça va, which we talked about. It's the verb aller. Mais ça a été? Was everything all right? Did you enjoy it? Pretty handy stuff. So, for some reason, present tense, we would use the verb aller, to go, but past tense, we would be like, how was it? However, in the future, ça ira? That will be going fine. That's the future. And again, we're back to the verb aller. So if we want to ask, how was it? We have to use être. So again, today we talked about how to pronounce. Je suis, tu es, il est. Nous sommes, vous êtes, ils sont. Je suis, tu es, il est. Nous sommes, vous êtes, ils sont. And we also talked about how to conjugate, match to a subject, as well as how to use correctly in sentences, that there are indeed expressions. If you have any questions or problems, feel free to contact me. Bon après-midi.